You're listening to the Oregon First Hunting and Fishing Podcast.
Our mission is to connect with and actively engage Western Oregon outdoorsmen.
Like, I want to encourage people to have a positive life change from the outdoors.
Yeah.
It's not just killing something.
One question we ask on this show is, what's your true motivation behind your life in the outdoors? What's going on deep down inside of you when you're engaging with hunting and fishing?
I believe that God gave us the ability to do this. That's one way to connect with God.
This is where the spiritual piece really comes in. We are a part, we have a profound impact on our resources.
I don't know how to answer that rather than to say it's just all about Jesus.
Listen to this podcast, join our Facebook group at Salem First Hunting and Fishing Club, or participate in any of our club fishing trips, shooting events, or hunting trips.
Welcome to the show. We're super glad that you tuned in and hope that you learned something valuable from today's episode. We're recording here in Salem, Oregon at our home studio here, and one of our goals of this show is to provide content that's specifically geared toward the most overlooked segment of the outdoorsman community. That is Pacific Northwest hunters and fishermen, even more specific, Oregon hunters and fishermen. That's why we're putting Oregon first in everything that we talk about. Whether you hunt black-tailed deer, or you hunt Roosevelt elk, or you go fishing in the Willamette River for smallmouth, buoy 10 salmon, all those things that are distinctives of our area. We want to talk about it. We want to create content revolving around that. So for those of you who spend the fall and winter swimming around in the wettest woods in the lower 48, thanks for tuning in. Wanted to remind you, join our Facebook group at Salem First Hunting and Fishing, and like our Instagram at OFHF Podcast. That way we can stay connected and get to know you a little bit, and you can be a part of our club gatherings.
Yeah, so coming up, we have a duck hunt December 16th. We're going to meet up really early in the morning, caravan out of here, and we're going to head towards the Salmon River. Just outside of Otis. It should be a day duck hunt. We're going to plan to be gone all day, I would think. So.
Yep. I think we'd probably get back late afternoon. Yeah. It's usually.
Somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly an hour drive from Salem.
Is it?
Yep.
It seems like it's longer than that.
Yeah, just to get to the launch at the Salmon River is exactly an hour.
So bring your shotgun, bring your shells, make sure you have your duck stamp.
Yep, you need your duck stamp, you need your wetland, what are they called again? Waterfowl validation.
There you go.
And your hunting license.
Yep.
There also is a potential for sea ducks, so if you want to shoot a scoter or something like that, you can grab your sea duck permit for $2. But other than that, you just need those other things I just said. And if you have decoys, if you have kayak, boat, bring it, be helpful. But if not, we'll make sure to get you set up with someone who has those things.
And finally, we want to add Shop Talk to your guys' schedule. If you guys haven't heard about that, we've been plugging that for the last few months now. Every fourth Monday of the month, we come together at 5:30 p.m. in Jefferson at a private property while we all kind of hang out. We have food. We talk about hunting and fishing. We have special guest speakers. So if you guys want to come out, it is a free event. You can get a hold of us, contact us via Facebook or on our Instagram page. Yeah.
In this episode, we talk about Eric and I's week in the outdoors. We have some news about Foster Lake Kokanee and Green Peter Kokanee. And we talk with our guest, tournament bass fisherman and discount tackle representative. Is that the right word?
That works.
All right. Yeah. Discount tackle guy, Jamie Mack.
Yeah, so Jamie McEldowney and I crossed paths, when we were teenagers.
Yeah, we were just kids.
Yeah, the Corvallis kind of Philomath area. We were both hanging out in the freestyle motocross scene. I met him the day he hit his first ramp. Do you remember that?
You were there for that? Oh, man.
Your dad came out with his
a little Swisher Sweet cigar.
We were talking, amping you up.
That was a scary day. I probably don't remember that because I was so just
focused.
Yeah, kind of wigged out.
Yeah, first jump you came up just a hair short, and the second one you just nailed it.
I still have that hip problem. That's what caused my hip problem. Is that jump? That
really?
Yes, that exactly.
You came back, dude, and
it all started
there. Yeah, that's where it was.
Cool. Your tides have kind of shifted now. You're into the pretty heavy, like I would say, really heavy into the fishing world as far as everything from tournaments, where you work at Discount Tackle, social media and everything. Your world revolves around a boat now.
Definitely.
Not so much a bike, huh?
Yeah, I had to kind of hang up the bike. I got tired of those injuries. just had trouble staying off the throttle. It was too much fun to just go wide open and hit big jumps, ramps, backflip dirt bikes at one point. And
well, now you need a John boat with a mud motor, and you can jump some beaver dams.
That would be cool. Yeah, jump some logs. I've got a little
boat.
river boat, but it doesn't have the the mud outboard, that long tiller.
Oh yeah, I know. That's the goal for me someday, and we'll get more into that. But
Right.
now it is time for icebreakers.
Icebreakers.
3, 2, 1, go!
Fishing or hunting?
Fishing.
Kayak or boat?
Both are cool, but I'm a boat guy.
Spinning or bait caster?
See, that's hard. That's hard. It's so situational for me that it's hard for me to. I mean, if I had to choose, it'd be a bait caster for sure. I like frog and flipping, heavy stick, but there's a time and a place for both.
Sure. Lake or river?
Also tough, but grew up on the Willamette River. Been fishing actually longer than I'd done anything in life. My dad was a salmon and steelhead guide, and we fished the river systems all the time, so I'll say river for sure.
Yeah. So salmon or bass?
Bass, yeah. I love them both. If I'm eating them, salmon.
Yeah.
But
can't beat the pink meat, right?
No, it's too good. It's good for you and delicious.
Hey, that'd be a good sticker. Can't beat the pink meat.
Ooh.
But that sounds a little suggestive. Maybe not.
Never know, man. That might be the selling point.
We also just copyrighted that, by the way.
Yeah, right.
We'll talk about some personal hunting and fishing stories from me and Eric. I had a pretty eventful Saturday opening of duck season, and not eventful in a good way, particularly. I mean, at least I created the memories, right? But I bought a 1983 9.9 Johnson for my John boat from some guy, and he said it had been sitting for 2 years, which, those things run forever. So I tested it in my front yard, and it started right up on the first pole, and it, idled a little rough for a second, then it cleared up, and I was like, sweet, I got a boat motor. I mean, you can't really know how it's doing until you get it out on the water and open it up.
Yep.
So here's the lesson I learned. Always test your new motors upstream, not downstream. It wasn't good thinking because I didn't do that.
Well, it's good thinking now. Yeah, you learned the hard way.
I did. And I don't know. I was a little too cocky because I had a 1964 Evinrude before this one that I would always test it upstream. And this time I just got too cocky. I'm like, oh, this thing will run great. Took it downstream, got maybe a quarter mile from the dock, and it dies the first time. Started messing with it a whole bunch. Figured out that, or what I still haven't figured out exactly, but it was having fuel issues. Either the diaphragms and the fuel pump are all hard from sitting, or there's something, the O-rings on the gas line connections. I don't know what, but it kept starving out whenever I'd try to get it up at full throttle. So I was hand pumping with the bulb to keep it alive. And it was working. It was keeping it alive when I do that. And I should have turned around then. But me and my buddy had a day of duck hunting planned. So we buzzed right down the river. We went miles down the river, probably 3 or 4 miles, doing some different duck sets. But then it started giving me grief again, and it died, and we couldn't get it to start back up. I don't know what was happening. We duck hunted for a little bit, barely got it alive, and then by hand pumping the fuel, I was able to keep it going. I think when I hand pump the fuel, it's using a lot more gas than it would if it was, doing it by itself.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really paying attention to my fuel gauge, and I looked down at the tank, and it has a little float in there, and it was on empty as I'm only halfway back upstream to the truck.
Brutal.
I guess I
good.
should add, I shot a coot that day, and that was all that
That's
I shot the whole
man.
day. The only trigger pull of the whole
Crappy
day
duck.
was on a coot.
All that effort,
Yep.
man.
And so we're getting back, we're like stressing, we're sweating because it's empty, and it's starting to kind of kick a little bit like it's running out of gas. We make it around the corner, and I can see my truck. It is right there. On Onyx, it showed it was only 500 yards away, and the motor dies. And so we paddle as hard as we can because the Willamette pushes pretty hard.
Oh, yeah.
And so we got onto the bank, and we let the motor sit for like 15 minutes and cranked because we managed to tilt the tank and get a little bit of gas in the pickup, to try to think, well, maybe it'll make it. But unfortunately, no. So we ended up trying to paddle back, but kept getting pushed back too hard. So we just There was no bank. We were grabbing sticks and brush and pulling the boat back up, and we finally got to where there was enough of a gravel bank that we could wade and push the boat and made it back to the truck. I think I flew too close to the sun on that one.
Yeah.
And definitely everyone test your motors upstream. Otherwise you'll have a Saturday like I did, and I've been sore ever since, because pulling your boat upstream with those sticks is not the best way to do it. Grabbing brush.
It's a great workout.
A little bit of arm pump.
Yeah. Oh, and my forearm was killing me after pumping the fuel bulb all day long. But hey, that 9.9, that actually gets me up and down the river way better than my 5.5 did. So
yeah,
I'm happy about that. I just need to get it running.
Yeah. What length is the John boat?
It's a 12-footer.
Yeah, so that'll rock and roll for sure.
Yeah, supposedly it should be able to get on plane if I'm in it by myself. So, and it was close with 2 people in it. It was doing pretty good. 25 downstream. So,
that's plenty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
All right, Eric, how about you?
Well, my week didn't suck that bad, but no, it's just been a week full of family stuff the last couple of weeks. So really, that's just kind of been dedicated to that. I did get us an invite to go over on the river system over on the coast. We're going to try and do some coho fishing one of these days here soon. I scared the crap out of these guys. We were at the tackle swap meet that we had at Shop Talk.
Oh, and
Andy's got this bow. And
it's a Matthews.
Yep.
From I don't know when. It could have been the 90s, could have been the 80s.
I'm thinking early 90s. Based on the camo pattern.
And by the string, it looked like it hasn't been messed with for that long.
Yeah, so what do? I walk up and
he pulls it right back.
These guys,
unafraid.
They're standing right in front of me, and I pull it back, and both of them are kind of
I was expecting that thing to explode.
Snap on you?
Yeah.
That would not feel good.
What are you guys worried about, you know?
But it's just oblivious to the
Yeah, so I'm gonna try and get schooled up in the bow hunting, try and get one soon. I'm going to go get it tuned right away. So that way I start off with fairly decent habits. So that's kind of it for me. Hopefully soon we'll get out and do some coho fishing.
Yeah, try to get on those. They're running really heavy still in the Willamette. People are catching. They're getting pretty colored up. But, people are catching coho still. All right, well, we'll move on to our look at the news. Or I guess I want to say, I put it in big letters. Here's our look at the news. There's a massive kokanee die-off at Foster and Green Peter, the 2 reservoirs there just out of Sweet Home. Thousands of kokanee found dead floating at the surface.
Yep.
So those that know about these 2 connected reservoirs know that both the lakes are pretty well-known kokanee fisheries. And in an effort, due to a lawsuit, they're going to allow the water level in Green Peter to hit historic lows down to almost the level of a creek. So the ODF&W did test the dead fish and confirmed that they didn't die of a disease or an infection. They died due to the effects of being forced into shallow hot water. Green Peter is pretty deep down there by the dam, and that's where they all hang out in that deep cold water in the summertime and even into the early fall. And what they're doing by releasing the water, they're blowing it out of the bottom of the dam, and it's sucking those kokanee out and tumbling them around. They get spit out into the top water column of the shallow water below, and their swim bladders are blowing up, just like when you catch a rockfish out of the ocean.
Yeah.
And you have to put them in a cage to push them back down. That's happening to the kokanee, and that's what's killing them, is being forced out of the dam. So the reason why they're doing this is because of a lawsuit funded by the Native Fish Society, the Wild Earth Guardians, and the Northwest Environmental Defense Center. And they want to draw down the lakes to allow for better passage by juvenile Chinook salmon.
I'm just going to say all of those organizations that probably shouldn't be making decisions about our...
I don't know anything about those organizations, but what they're doing is the Chinook salmon that spawn up there, they apparently have a hard time getting out of the dam outlet because they stay in the top part of the water column, apparently within the top 25 feet. And so by lowering the dam, they're trying to get them closer to the outlet. But what that's causing is Green Peter so low that it's sucking out all the kokanee and killing them. And to have it down to like a creek, that's a lot of good fishing.
Yeah. Well, just seeing the pictures I saw, it was chaotic. Thousands of fish belly up, and you know, it wasn't just a few, it was literally thousands. And
before we recorded, Jamie was telling us about the bass fishing was getting really hot out there.
Yeah, absolutely. The smallmouth fishing in Green Peter in the last handful of years has really, really come a long way. I mean, very large fish. I've seen smallmouth up to 7 pounds caught. I haven't personally caught one that large out there, but I've caught a bunch in the 5 pound range. That's massive for a smallmouth, especially in Oregon, right? You know, I've caught plenty myself in the last handful of years in the 5 pound range. Really healthy fish, and we even won a tournament out there a couple of years ago. Our best 5 weighed close to 23 pounds, all smallmouth.
It's a huge bet.
And it's the numbers too. There's a, you know, it's not like overpopulated or entirely overrun with smallmouth by any means, but there's good numbers of them there, and they're, you know, they're big healthy fish. And it's this drawdown of Green Peter, especially if they truly get it down to a creek or river level. Sure, some of those fish can probably survive, but you think of the amount of fish as a whole in that body of water, whether it's the kokanee, other trout species or trout species, the bass. There's largemouth in there as well as smallmouth. I've caught crappie, bluegill, you know, perch. There's a lot of fish in that body of water.
Yeah.
To jam them all into one tiny river system for half the year.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of die-off outside of even the kokanee, I have to imagine.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering. Like, we've seen the kokanee. They're washing up in mass. They died because they were physically forced out of the dam. But how many of those fish that are remaining in the reservoir are going to die just because the water's so low? Like you're saying, there's less room. It's going to be warmer. You know, it's totally...
Food sources, I mean,
yeah.
You know, they're just going to be eating each other, I guess, even more than normal.
It's totally
going
to
to
change
be a lot
the lake.
of food, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a ton of crawdads in that lake where, you know, obviously they're going to get, I guess, funneled down into this river as well, but how many of those are going to die off? And is there enough to sustain all of these other fish through this part of the season?
One note that I read in an article about this that they tried to put a positive spin is that there was a lot of kokanee, so they were small. Now there's going to be less, so they'll be big. But I just don't think that if it's drawing down to the level of a creek, I don't think there's going to be any kokanee in there.
Right.
They need deep lakes. They're deep lake fish.
Even you got to wonder how, with all these different fish species, how is this going to affect their spawn? Outside of course, the salmon. I mean, we all love salmon as well. It's not like we're over here dogging on the salmon. Like, we want those to have healthy population as well. But, you know, with all these other fish and their spawning cycles throughout the season, is there going to be enough water back in the reservoir to provide the proper structure, and is the water be high enough to where those, for, you know, I'm thinking bass because I'm a bass guy, but will the big flats where there's stumps be underwater in time to where that's, you know, that's where those smallmouth go up and spawn?
And even, can there be enough fish to reproduce and you know, keep the spawn going, keep the population up? Because if it changes that much, are we just gonna have a big lake with no fish in it? Because that's a pretty wild transition to go from creek to lake to creek to lake, you know?
Right. Well, I've been hearing all this, I don't even want to call them rumors. People are coming out on social media saying West Coast fishing's dead. Well, now you know why. You know, we have people out there making decisions that aren't good for our fisheries, and you know, ultimately what it's affecting is tournament fishing. It's affecting recreational people. It's, you know, now you guys kind of know why it's dead.
Isn't Green Peter one of the biggest reservoirs we have in this part of the state?
I would say, definitely in this part of the state.
It's
a good sized lake, has long arms, you know, river arms, creek arms.
Because obviously, like, Prineville's bigger,
right? You get out into Central Oregon,
you got
there's some bigger
of
lakes,
those, but like for our area, that's like the biggest one by a long shot.
I think that and Fern Ridge,
down
in Eugene, that's a big one, but it's a giant bowl, right?
They're probably going to drain that one down too.
There's definitely talk of them draining additional lakes, especially our highland reservoirs like Green Peter, your Cottage Groves, your Detroits, Lookout Point Reservoir. I've heard, you know, rumor and even seen some stuff in writing talking about how they may target some of these other lakes. It could change things big time.
I sure hope that it works and we get some more freaking salmon to go catch if we're not going to be able to go kokanee fishing anymore.
Well,
absolutely. And you know,
that's the big question.
It may hurt a lot of those fisheries, and if that's the case, if we're not getting a significant increase in the salmon populations, what are we doing?
Yeah. Well, that does it for the news segment. There's nothing we can do about it. We're powerless. This is just happening to our lake. So let's hope that things settle out there. Well, let's get into our guest interview with Jamie Mack.
Jamie, welcome to the show. We appreciate you being here. You've been on our list for, well, since the inception of our show.
Hey, dude, you were on our top 10 list. Can you believe that?
Well, we made it, right?
Yeah.
This is number 10, so we squeaked it in.
Yeah, that's right.
Dude, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's awesome. Yeah. So anyway, we're just happy to have you here. You're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to fishing the rivers, the lakes. You have a strong business background. Just out of kind of all of our friends, probably one of the ones that I'm like, that's a good guy.
Appreciate that a lot.
Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First off, thank you guys for having me. I'm very grateful to be here and have this opportunity. I think it's really cool. Love what you guys are doing. Like I said, I've listened to some of the podcasts. I haven't caught all 9 previous yet, but I'm working on it. And
cool.
Man, I've been digging it. You guys are doing a great job. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. What are some of your, maybe it's a hunting or a fishing story? What's one that you could share with us that kind of sticks out?
Sure. It's a tough question to narrow that down to just one individual experience, but
put you on the spot.
Yeah, and I think, I've done plenty of hunting in my life, but more or less that was when I was younger. I haven't done as much hunting in the last, say, 10 years. I still have. I dabble here and there, but fishing's really taken over. So as far as a fishing story, I don't know if it's really one individual moment, but it was an annual trip that my family would take over to Eastern Oregon, a little town called Halfway, Oregon. It's near Baker.
Okay.
I had an aunt and uncle over there. They have moved. They're actually back over here now on the coast, but for many years they lived in Halfway, and we would go fishing out on the Snake River. My uncle had a pontoon. We'd tube behind it. We'd barbecue on it. We'd fish. And that, when I was a young kid, that really, that's where I started doing a lot of bass fishing, catching smallmouth. We'd catch crappie like crazy out there. The crappie populations were insane. Do fish fries and all that. And I think just being out on the boat with my dad, my family, my uncle, my mom was always out there. We'd bring my cousin sometimes and just have a blast out on the Snake River and catching all kinds of stuff. There was even times I remember, never forget skinning my first catfish.
Oh yeah, I was going to say there's some
old
catfish
school,
out there.
like they were doing old school. You nail them through the top of the skull and you're using pliers to rip that skin off.
Nice.
You got to work hard for that fish fry.
It's the only way I've ever done it.
Is that okay? Maybe that's just the way. I don't know. I figured that was
that's
like
the best way to do it.
Yeah, it worked well. But a lot of great memories over there on the Snake River. And actually, one of the reasons I chose that as my story here is when I got married, my wife and I didn't take a legitimate honeymoon for a couple years. We were saving up some money. So instead, right after our wedding, we shot over. I took her to Halfway. I actually showed her my aunt and uncle's old house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did. We brought the bass boat, went out and did some fishing on the Snake River, caught a bunch of bass. She caught a gigantic catfish. And it kind of came full circle for me to go share some of these childhood experiences with her.
That's cool.
That was really cool. Yeah.
Well, one thing you mentioned was your dad, and your dad, he's a huge guy in your life.
Sure.
The first day I met you, I was like, dude, this guy's dad is so rad. Your dad was hilarious.
He was a legend for sure in his own right.
He would give you crap, but man, he was just the nicest guy in the world. I think anything you do, he was backing you 100%.
Right.
That
super
guy was
supportive. Just incredibly blessed to have him as a father. And he didn't take crap from anyone, especially me, when it came down to it. He kept me in line when he needed to, for sure. But very supportive. And I wouldn't be the person I am today without his influence, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and he kind of, in his support, I don't know a lot of parents that are like, go jump this dirt bike.
Right.
As a dad,
go fling yourself off of a 10-foot super kicker.
Yeah. It's like my body hurts so bad these days. I'm just like, I couldn't ever talk my kid into doing that, But your dad was always there and, always had a cigar in his mouth.
Yep. No
hanging out, watching, cheering you on. But he kind of got you going into your motocross career. So tell us a little bit about that. Just, I guess, explain the transition between motocross and getting into bass fishing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the dirt bike thing, that was a 15-year plus span of my life. I'll always consider myself a dirt bike guy. I still own dirt bikes.
How old were you when you started that? 15 years?
Oh, gosh. I mean, probably 12 or 13, which is actually late getting into it for somebody that goes and wants to be competitive in the sport of motocross, whether it's racing or anything, really. A lot of those guys are starting when they're like, as soon as they can walk, they're getting on a dirt bike. Yeah. Those guys are, I'm talking like the guys running like the AMA Supercross and motocross stuff. Yeah. But But yeah, had a great stint there. Absolutely loved doing it. Still, ride dirt bikes till the day I die, or at least till my body won't let me do it. But I've toned it way, way back. But yeah, my father was very influential in that. He was a dirt bike dude back in the 70s. I've got an older brother that not a lot of people know about. He's 20 years older than me. So yeah, so I've got
20 years older. Wow.
Half brother, same mother. But my dad was a father figure to him in a sense, and they got into riding dirt bikes. And actually my brother was phenomenal. Like, dude used to ride CR 500s, race them back when that was a thing. Right, yeah. I believe he was even state champion at one point here in Oregon, racing the motocross circuits. I'll never forget going to the Albany motocross track when I was a little kid and watching my brother just sanding it out there, thinking, oh, that's the coolest thing. And I had my first drink of Gatorade there. I'll never forget that either. I don't know why that stuck with me, but I was like, wow, that's good. I didn't actually start riding for quite a few years after that particular moment, but father I went to him one day and said, hey, I want to throw my leg over a dirt bike. At that point, he didn't actually have a dirt bike anymore. Eventually, he bought a new dirt bike and got me a little dirt bike and started riding together. Yeah.
So did motocross help you kind of get recognized in the sport or getting into the sport of bass fishing?
I think it definitely played a role in some regards. Sure. From like a sponsorship standpoint, I had some of the necessary skill sets for going out and approaching companies to try to gain sponsorship because of the motocross side of things. I would say I really learned.
A sponsored motocross rider.
I did have a handful of sponsors over the years that helped me out a little bit financially. A lot of it was more like parts and gear and things that you got to pay for out of pocket if you don't have it. But
energy drinks out the wazoo.
That was another long stint of my life there. But
you don't have any connections with energy drinks still?
I'm sure if I needed some samples, I could still get a few. But no, worked for Rockstar Energy for quite some time. Met some really cool people there in the motocross world. Still have some really great friends that I met through that, and then ended up working a full-time job at Rockstar and then jumping ship.
Wow.
In the last 8.5 or 9 years, I was at Monster Energy prior to now working at Discount Tackle. So
really, okay.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time in that energy drink world.
Is that a normal path for people to take, like motocross and energy drinks hand in hand?
In the era that I was involved heavily, the energy drink thing was huge. Like
because everyone knows about Red Bull, extreme sports.
Yeah, all of those three brands, like your big three, or your Red Bull, your Rockstar, and your Monster Energy. They're the three biggest players as far as sponsorship wise in the motocross world, and still to this day they're very very
interesting
big
that they have that niche there, but they're not really into fishing.
They're starting to get there. So I was pushing Monster hard. I knew some of the marketing guys, and I was pushing like, you guys got to think about it. Not everybody's old in the sport of fishing. We're all different ages, but we all get up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever it may be, 5 a.m. fishing these tournaments, or even just going fishing on the weekend. We're out on the water long periods of time. Like, these are the guys that literally live off caffeine. Like,
that's
you need
true.
This is your core market, and those older dudes, they really need it.
Mountain Dew has the market cornered in a lot of ways, and they could easily take them out.
Yeah. So it's they're starting to. I think I'm not saying I necessarily influence that with Monster, but I am seeing them play a little bit more in the fishing and outdoor world, and I love seeing that. So they've got a couple guys that are top tier pros now.
Well, then if they weren't already in that world, was that something you always had your eye on? Like, when did you start tournament fishing, and when did it kind of grow into something more?
I actually fished my first tournaments as a young kid. So my dad, I think I mentioned earlier, he was a salmon and steelhead guide when I was young. So he did that when I was real young. Eventually, he kind of gave that up to be around more, essentially, when I was a young kid. But he kept a boat. He had a jet boat that he was guiding out of, and we started just entering bass tournaments. We thought it'd be fun. So I did it as a young kid for actually quite a few years. Eventually, he bought a bass boat, sold the jet boat. We got a little more serious about it, and then all of a sudden, dirt bikes popped up, and
so it kind of interrupted.
Girls and dirt bikes, and I kind of took a left turn.
It's
there.
like your destiny that you couldn't get away from. Like
as far as the fishing, it came right back. And
you tried.
The fishing bug bit me hard again. That tournament fishing started for me then. I don't know if, not on the level I'm doing it now, right?
Right.
I got back into actual serious tournament fishing probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I was still working at the energy drink company. And it just, I was tired, like I said, tired of getting hurt so much. And just, wanted something I could do real easy, just slide out on the river. And so my father had a riverboat. He passed years ago. And So he had, the riverboat was still floating around, and it's a little river bass boat with a jet pump on it. So I inherited that, and we hadn't run it. We had run it a few times, a few years prior to him passing, and I was, it was a very nostalgic thing. Same boat we ran, actually one of the same boats we ran when I was a young kid, and I just wanted to get that thing out. So I went and dug that thing out of the shed, cleaned it up, tuned it up, got it running.
Man.
I put it on a lake, though, to test the outboard.
Oh, not a river?
Yeah, not a river.
Just go upstream, dude.
It was actually
bring you right back.
It was actually Foster Lake, of all lakes. So we were talking about that earlier. I just took it out there to make sure that thing would run. But yeah, got that thing out. Like I said, dusted it off. Started doing some bass fishing on the Willamette, going to all my dad's old spots. We had nicknames for all these holes, and I was like, just so nostalgic to go back. And we actually put some of his ashes out in a lot of these places. So it was a very special thing to be able to take his boat that I'd inherited and go put his ashes out in some of his favorite fishing holes on the Willamette River.
Off of his boat.
And exactly. And that just ignited that fishing passion again. I just couldn't get away from it. Next thing I know, I'm rejoining the club that we were in as when I was a kid. At the time, it was the Polk County Bass Busters.
Sweet.
Pretty cool name. I wish they didn't change it, but they got away from the Polk County thing, got a little bigger. They transitioned to the Mid-Valley Bass Club.
Oh, all right. There you go.
So that's the club I joined 7 or so years ago.
Polk County.
Technically,
Bass
it's the
Busters.
same club. Yeah.
Wow.
So that really great group of guys. Still a great group of guys.
I see them doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's a cool group. Very approachable folks. Anybody looking to get into tournament bass fishing here in Oregon, definitely check out Mid-Valley Bass Club. Cheap entry fees. You're not spending a fortune. But still a fun day, and you can win a few bucks at the end of the day if you do good. So
fun.
But yeah, that was it. Started with the clubs, and then over the last 7 or so years, just started entering into some of the bigger opens and bigger circuits, and now I'm doing anything and everything I can get my hands on here.
Yeah, cool.
Speaking of circuits, what circuits are you running right now? So you just got done with ABA, right?
Correct.
What do you got coming up in 2024?
2024, I'm not even entirely sure yet, to be honest. There's the three bigger circuits here in Oregon. You got your ABA, which is American Bass, TBF, which is the Bass Federation, and then BASS, which they do the Bass Federation Nation, which is like their state level. Those three they're all amazing circuits. I've now fished all of them at one time or another. ABA, we did really well this year. We actually won Angler of the Year. We tied.
Congratulations,
team,
by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been hunting down one of those for a long time, a lot of second places. Finally got the top spot. So.
I think I'd take that over a first place win any day.
On a single tournament?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's a combination of your whole season, right? You got to do well all season. You can't have too many slip-ups.
Yeah.
And we just, like I said, we barely squeaked. This is the last tournament of the season. We knew we had to either win it or get second.
Yeah.
And we would stay in that top spot, and we ended up getting second. So we tied for that top spot.
Wow.
Really cool. A couple things that are changing. So ABA, wonderful circuit. We had a guy that kind of had come in and brought ABA back to Oregon. Yep. ABA is a whole West Coast circuit, but they do all these state level tournaments. Well, the guy, great dude, his name's Dustin. He's done a great job as tournament director for ABA here in Oregon, but he actually just got a new job offer, and he has hit the road. He is now, I believe he's on his way to North Carolina. Wow. He's not going to be doing tournament director or president or whatever his title was anymore. Yeah. So they're kind of scrambling, trying to find somebody to step up and take over that role. So I'm not sure if ABA is even going to happen next year, which part of the AOI, you get your tournaments paid for the next season. So I'm really rooting for somebody to step up because I don't have to pay for entry fees. So
I hear Ryan Sparks wants another director spot.
Right,
this year.
there you go. Yeah, where's Ryan at?
He's running BASS.
Right, and he does a great job over there. BASS, great circuit. Again, TBF, great circuit. Tom at TBF does a phenomenal job. TBF's really come a long way in the last few years. Their numbers are up. Their attendance is up. They're putting on some incredible open events on top of their circuits. They run 2 circuits, a coastal and a river circuit. I'll definitely still dabble with that. And if ABA doesn't work out, then I'll jump back over and join Ryan on the BASS side.
Over the last few years, we've had Wild West Bass Trail. We've had several over the last several years, but I think those 3 have been pretty prominent and not going away. So I'm just really hoping that ABA sticks around and we can find somebody to fill that hole, because we need more attention to, our West Coast fishery. We have guys going on, national campaigns saying the West Coast is dead, and, it's not dead yet. So let's fish it while it is.
Right. No, it's not dead yet. And I think from a very top level perspective, the big circuits have just kind of cold shouldered the West Coast as a whole.
Yep.
And it makes it tough, right? You lose the sponsorship money, you lose the eyeballs from TV and everything else for the West Coast. And it's like, how can we grow the West Coast when we don't have all that support coming from the highest level? So it's challenging. We got our work cut out for us. I don't think it's dead yet either.
Yeah. Well, and there's challenges over on the East Coast too.
Sure.
Bass Pro Tour, they just took $1 million out of the purse.
Right.
I mean, that's huge. So that means payouts are going to get smaller. The fields are going to get smaller.
Yeah.
Basically guys that would typically be, in the top 1 through maybe 25, those last 15 guys are getting cut. So
yeah,
it's going to be a narrow window of competition, I think. So how do you see kind of the future of tournament fishing going? Do you think it's even a possibility to get, more attention over here on the West Coast?
I definitely hope so. Obviously you mentioned the Wild West Bass Trail and that did fizzle out, unfortunately. However, one of the anglers who also is very involved in the bass industry, he owns I think Bass Angler Magazine. That's the right one. BAM. So Bass Angler Magazine. He actually stepped up and purchased the assets from Wild West Bass.
Cool.
And he now owns the trailers, the tournament setup, the weigh-in setup, and he is now creating his own circuit. It's going to be run under the Bass Angler Magazine name.
Oh, okay.
So the BAM Tournament Trail or something along those lines. And so he's bringing it back. He's trying to get another full-blown West Coast circuit back together. And he does have a lot of good connections in the industry. I've talked to this guy one-on-one on the phone multiple times, and we've talked about sort of his game plan. And he's got the connections in the industry to potentially make something happen, at least make some waves. And obviously it's going to take time, right? It's going to take time. But I'm really excited to see what he does, for sure.
Where do you kind of see your future going with fishing? You have this career with Discount Tackle. I know, most of us have to have a full-time job in order to support our habit. And
for sure. Yeah, no
our
doubt.
habit just happens to be really expensive. But yeah, where do you see your fishing career going over the next several years?
Definitely doing a little more of what I'm doing now. So, my job at Discount Tackle is a full-time thing. I mean, that is my 9 to 5 or, 6 to 8, whatever you want to call it. Working a lot of hours there and loving it. So I definitely, see myself really focusing on that. I've had to put a lot of focus on the job and my career, my future there, and even take some of the focus off certain aspects of the fishing, right? Like I'm not chasing down sponsors like I was at one time. I just don't have as much time to do that. And had to make that decision and do the right thing and focus on the career. And that's also in turn though been very beneficial to my fishing in its own way, right? I mean, we get a little employee discount, which definitely helps, goes a long way. But on top of it, I mean, I'm in the know. I'm fishing baits before they hit the market. I'm getting to play with stuff. So there's some benefit to it for sure. And making incredible contacts in the industry, right? Part of my job is brand manager, so I'm the guy that's bringing all the new products into Discount Tackle, and in that process, I get to meet all the folks at these brands, the biggest brands in the fishing world. So I'm definitely building some good connections
and beta test. So
that's always fun. Yeah, it's tough because I go and have a banner day on a bait, and I just want to post about it, but I can't. I'm like,
that's gotta be hard. You kind of alluded to that. The work, career, bass fishing, life is hard. What's it like juggling or trying to juggle family life? Are you dragging Sarah along with you on trips, work trips when you can, bass fishing trips when you can? It seems like you guys are able to get out.
Yeah, we get along phenomenal. So I can drag her out, and she doesn't go fishing with me maybe quite as much as I'd like, but I had to drop that in there. Just in case she's listening.
Sarah.
But no, she's wonderful. She's super super supportive. As far as like from a just general perspective, family life is great. It is a lot though, right? And I'm just traveling regionally. I'm not even traveling like Oregon and Washington and a little bit of California between work and fishing tournaments. And it's tough just doing that. Imagine what these guys are doing, being on the road 7 months a year, fishing the professional circuits. I mean, it's wild to think of that. But no, I all in all, everything's great. Sarah's extremely supportive. My family and friends are supportive. But again, yeah, you gotta kind of narrow the focus down occasionally. Sure. And again, that's what I did with Discount Tackle. Was really wanted to focus on that, make my mark there, do what I can to help that business grow. And I'm sure at some point, if we can keep seeing good growth, we'll get to a point where I'm able to squeak out a little more often, shoot some content, nice. Do the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Right now is still the grind, getting that business going to where it needs to be.
Well, you guys have a huge footprint. I mean, compared to where you guys were even just a few years ago, seeing ads popping up, and it's awesome.
Yeah, we've
been
hitting that marketing hard. And that's
cool.
That's the other half of my job is the marketing side, and we've been really pushing on that and adding new products. I mean, I think just in the first year I brought in close to 10,000 new SKUs.
Wow.
So individual, right? Like that can be individual colors and sizes within a category or line of baits. But yeah, we brought a lot in.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, we've been hitting that really hard, trying to get as good of a selection as we can in our current space. We're actually going to be moving into a new warehouse next summer.
Really?
We got it all kind of lined up at this point, gaining about, I think it was between 6,000 and 8,000 additional square feet.
Are you allowed to say what city it's in?
It's literally next door to us in Wilsonville. We're just actually moving a few doors down. It's to a larger space. So yeah, we're staying real close. It'll be nice for the move because we won't have to load trucks and drive everything around.
They say that the closer the move, the worse it is, because then you feel like you don't need to box as much stuff.
Right, yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out.
Moving a whole warehouse is probably different than moving a house.
Yeah, I don't actually know how we're going about that portion of it yet. I just know it's in the works. So we're excited for that. Right? We need the space. I've packed our warehouse to the gills with new product, and we're at that point. I'm starting having to tell companies, no, I just can't bring any more in right now. We've got to, even though I want to carry everything.
So your photography that you do, has that been a part of your job at all at Discount?
Yeah, definitely shoot a little bit of some of our marketing stuff. I haven't had the time to do a ton with it there. I'd love to do more. And then I've done some product images for the site, but that's kind of plain and boring photography, really. We're shooting on a white background. But yeah, I've definitely been able to use the photography in a sense there. It's benefited me in a lot of different ways. Through my fishing and motocross careers, I've done a lot of work in the photography world, creating content.
And like even looking at your Instagram account where you have like just tons of followers and really beautiful pictures of bass and little videos of fish and everything, seems like you found a job that really fits a lot of different niches of your experiences and your skills.
I would agree with that. Yeah. The camera has been along with me for quite a few different rides. Like I said, the motocross world, I started shooting photography there. Kind of a crazy story. So I was hired by motorsport.com, which is one of the leading motocross parts online e-commerce businesses in the world.
Wow.
And they're out of Portland, Oregon, or maybe Beaverton, I believe.
I love hearing when we got big businesses.
Oh yeah, they're right in our backyard for sure. And so, I was working for them. I was doing some different photos. We're actually over on the coast, shooting some dunes shots that ended up in one of their calendars, and they did some other marketing with it. And long story short, the guy that I was working with doing those photos, his name was Jared. He called me up about a year and a half ago, and I hadn't talked to him in quite a while. Like he was still on my phone. It was like jaredmotorsport.com. Like that was what he was in there. And he goes, "Hey, I'm working for a fishing company. I want to talk." And I'm like, "What?"
Random.
You're a moto guy.
Yeah.
That's, and he goes, "No, I know it's crazy. We'll talk, whatever. But I want to talk to you. I'm working for this company called Discount Tackle."
Yeah.
And at first he was talking about just doing some content. He ended up having me come up and meet the folks there and check out the warehouse in Wilsonville.
A little bit of a covert interview.
And I'm just going like, holy smokes! There's so much tackle in this place. I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know Discount Tackle was a thing yet.
Wow.
And so it turns out he is now my boss, full time. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's neat that all started with that camera, and I guess that to bring it back there, it was the camera that I was using to shoot some photos and make a little pocket change on the side back in the moto world. Transitioned me now into working full time in the fishing industry, and I've used it for social as well. That's how I got a lot of my early sponsorships in the fishing world, was being able to provide some sort of a benefit to a company over just, hey, I'm wearing your logo on my shirt, or I'm wearing your logo on my hat. Was to provide that little something extra in providing high quality professional content that they could use.
And there's so many people that would love a job in the outdoor industry, and yours kind of fell into your lap just from your experiences and your skills. You were sought out.
And I think, again, it comes back to, how you market yourself, promote yourself. Sure. But it's building those connections organically, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
I have been the guy that's been out pushing really hard, like I said, to get sponsorships, trying to get that help. And you get turned down way more than you get, a yes.
Yep.
But again, letting those things happen kind of organically, putting yourself out there, not being afraid to go shake hands with, the cool guy that works at Rockstar Energy Drink.
Uh-huh.
That's the same thing, just organically kind of turned into a job after
Yeah.
Just wanting to meet, dude, you work for Rockstar? That's awesome. How'd you get into that? You want to ride dirt bikes together? Cool. And then, yeah. Well, that definitely was asked, but yeah. So, it's all kind of one big picture, right? I'm use the camera, open some doors for sure.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting into the season of winter, so we're going to start talking a little bit about winter bass fishing and give us some selections about not necessarily rod reel combo or anything like that, but kind of what gear are you going to be running this winter? For me, I've done okay off of jerk baits, Senkos, whether that's running them off a spinning rod, finesse fishing. What's kind of your go-to, and what are some baits that you like to use in kind of the winter months when, the water's either super blown out, brown, nasty, or there's that, once in a while day where you get a decent, blue, crystal clear blue water.
I feel you on the spinning rod thing.
Yeah.
You got to slow down in the winter, right? With bass in particular, right? You got to slow down a little bit, but definitely a suspending jerkbait too. I've caught a lot of fish in the colder months on a suspending jerkbait, working it slow. It's not you're not fishing it like KVD, just twitch, you're twitch, pause, and you wait, and it's hard. You got to let it sit there. So I've done really well on a jerkbait, and if that's probably about as reaction as it gets for me during the colder months. Other than that, picking up a spinning rod, throwing a drop shot, shaky head. I will throw a Senko. I'm not a big weightless wacky rig guy in general. I know it's very effective all year round, but the one time a year I will pick that up is during the colder months. You can cast that out to a piece of structure, just let it fall, brutally slow, and then just let it kind of dead stick it almost, let it sit on the bottom for as long as you can manage before you give it a twitch. And that is pretty effective. A little challenging in the winter months. I'm a power guy. I want to go throw a frog and a deep diving crankbait or a flipping and pitching into wood. But there's still fish to be caught all year round. No doubt about it.
Didn't you do a bass every month?
I did that last year or year before. I didn't make it happen. No, it was 2 years ago. You're right. I think it was 2 years ago.
Did you make the attempt or did it?
Things just got in the way this last year. Yeah. This year, what is this, 23 now? Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
I don't know, actually, this year was...
Maybe you're on your way, you just don't know it.
I might be.
Yeah.
We'll have to check.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I made a goal one year to do that, and I was able to do it. It wasn't easy, but we were able to do it.
I think October or November was when I got my PB, so
this time of year can be phenomenal.
Continuing the conversation about bass fishing, one thing that a lot of people have questions about that takes a really long time to figure out is color. Specifically knowing what color lure, what water conditions. And so I wanted to pick your brain on what do you pay attention to when you're choosing a color? And what sort of different water conditions do different colors do best in for you?
And are we talking this time of year or just in general throughout the season?
Well, let's talk colors in general.
Colors in general?
Yep. Let's say a overcast versus a sunny day, cold water versus warmer water, time of year. It's what are some things, murky water, clear water, and then how do you pick a color for those different environments?
Definitely. Just in a general sense, starting out with that question, I prefer to fish more natural. I try to match the hatch. That's my thing. I'm a big match the hatch kind of guy. Some bass guys are not. They're throwing the most flamboyant colors they can get their hands on, and they're still catching them. So color matters, but it doesn't always matter as much as I think we get all twisted in our head thinking it matters. But there are definitely days and times. Do you think
maybe higher pressured fish, it matters a little more?
Yeah, I can definitely see that, right? I think on higher pressured fisheries, going a little more natural, a little more subtle.
Yeah,
can be good.
Maybe a fish that hasn't seen too many lures is more okay biting a bright white or a chartreuse.
They're just gonna smoke anything. Yeah, they're
like a chartreuse frog,
right?
Versus like a fish that's seen that 100 times.
Sure,
might want the more natural looking bait.
Yeah, I've always just been a more match the hatch kind of guy. However, if I'm fishing colder, muddy water, I definitely will adjust to those brighter colors like a chartreuse and white, and baits that have more vibration. Vibration plays a lot in that too. So if you have, again, that murkier, dirty water, stained water, a little bit more action, vibration, crankbaits, bladed jigs, spinnerbaits, things like that in brighter colors. Or you can go to the flip side and actually go very dark with the color of the bait. So sometimes I'll actually mix it up. If they're not biting the white and chartreuse spinnerbait, I'll pick up a black and blue or black and purple, and I'll try that in muddy water as well. It just contrasts well even in that mud. And I've had days where that change has made a very significant difference. So it does play sometimes for sure.
So what you're doing in that situation is you're trying to make the bait visible.
In those conditions, yes, it just needs to be able to be found. I think, they need the thumping, the vibration, they're picking that up in their lateral line.
Yep.
Sight is not obviously as good when it's that murky. So you want something that's really bright or really dark, again, to contrast. So just them finding it is important.
Yeah.
Now on the flip side, if you're fishing really clear water, really clean water, again, that's when I go more natural, trying to really match the hatch. That's when I'll study. If I'm going to a new fishery, I'll study what prey is in that body of water. What do the crawdads look like? What do the bait fish look like? What other fish species are in the lake? And so if it's loaded with bluegill, I'll probably throw a very natural bluegill color bait. In those clear water conditions. Yeah.
And so then if you're throwing something that doesn't look like a bluegill, you would still go for the bluegill color in that situation?
I mean, it just, again, anything natural. I think bass aren't overly picky. Like I said, they can be. They can be finicky. But if it's really bright, if we're talking like gin clear water and high bluebird, blue sky kind of day.
Yeah.
If I can get them on a reaction bite, I'm going to do it. I want to fish that way. But a lot of times I'll be throwing like almost a translucent or clear kind of a opaque colored bait, something that has some light transparency through it. To really make it subtle and natural.
Yeah.
So that I'm thinking jerk baits, crankbaits, things like that. If you're throwing soft plastics, I don't know if it matters as much because you're generally fishing that on the bottom. And if they're looking down at the bottom, it's going to have color to it, right? It's going to be brown or gray or whatever color the bottom is in that.
Yep.
So then I'm throwing those browns, those green pumpkins, the watermelon colors.
Yeah.
Crawdad colors, things like that if I'm sticking a bait on the bottom.
Where we fish a lot in the Willamette, it's not always muddy. It's usually green.
Right. So I know what color you're talking about.
Yeah. So what kind of like color baits are you using in green water?
That's a tough one. I don't know if you kind of got to play both ends of it, or I'll generally probably start with something natural, and if they're not hitting it, then you move, and you kind of got to let the fish tell you what they want.
Sure.
I don't have a real dedicated color spectrum for that, and I fish the Willamette a lot, and I love it. I think they can see better than we can in the water, so at least that's what I've read and what I understand. So they can still see everything just fine. The natural seems to go well in that greener color water.
Yeah.
Or honestly, if it's Willamette during peak season, I'm probably throwing top water, for being honest.
Yeah.
And at that point, I don't know. If it's a high bluebird day, now top water's different. If it's a high bluebird day, I like black. I think it contrasts the bright blue sky really well.
Okay.
If you got a clear bait or something that's translucent, they may not be able to see it as well, or even a white bait. Now, if it's really overcast, dark skies, and I'm throwing top water, I'll go with the brighter, the bone color, the white, something that does pop a little better in darker conditions.
Well, how does depth of the water contort colors? As you go deeper, don't the colors appear different?
Does
that affect your color choice?
It can, to some degree. I have seen a really neat study where they showed this color wheel, and they had a camera on it somehow and sank it down, and as it got darker and darker, as the thing got deeper, you could see those colors changing. There was a certain couple colors that really stood out. I think it was like reds and oranges, which kind of makes sense. I don't quote me on that, but it was interesting seeing how some of those colors, some of the more natural colors, almost disappear. Yeah. They do get hard to see. So I don't know if you're fishing really deep. I still end up throwing natural stuff a lot, but there are times where that's
sounds like what you're saying is you start natural
that's just
every
me,
time.
Totally.
You just start natural.
Unless it's really muddy.
Yeah, and then in those bad water conditions, muddy, murky water, you'll kind of switch it up to make it visible.
Right. Otherwise, I'm starting natural, and if I have to change it up, I will. For sure.
Yeah.
But I do think, mixing it up with some slightly brighter colors in deeper water, if you're fishing, 30, 40 plus feet.
Yeah.
I can see how the visibility down there would definitely be, obviously a little bit tainted. It's just a little dark. So yeah.
Have you noticed a pattern like when you're fishing a river and a lake? Like let's say in the same week, you're going from a river to a lake and you're throwing the same style of baits. Have you noticed a difference in color choice for each of those different, whether it's river water or lake water?
Yeah, I think really any body of water, whether you go lake to lake, river to lake, river to river, it does seem that certain colors do work better during certain time frames, and that's not always consistent either, though, right? It's
sure.
This is one of the big mysteries in fishing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Uh-huh.
It's a good topic because, everybody's going to have their own kind of different opinion, but
Sure.
yeah, I think I've absolutely had days like I did a trip with one of my good buddies, Kyle Spears, this last year. We hit 4 lakes in 2 days on the coast.
Yep.
Sweet.
And man, that was a blast, but it was like something different worked at every lake.
Yep.
There was one bait we were throwing a Megabass mag draft, which
those are awesome.
Oh man, if you want to get into the swim bait game, that's a great entry swim bait to get you hooked and
in rainbow.
Right, yeah. And so we were throwing rainbow trout color and that plays really well, obviously on the lakes where we have stock
that's one of
rainbow
Eric's
trout.
favorite colors for anything.
Oh,
rainbow trout.
Here in Oregon, you can't go wrong with rainbow trout,
especially at a lake.
Yeah.
But you hop over to one of the river systems and I do a lot better on like a white mag draft, right? Like a pearl white.
Really?
And I don't know if it's just smallmouth prefer that they may. I do catch a lot of smallmouth on brighter colors as well. I think different species even between largemouth and smallmouth.
Okay.
I do find myself using brighter, more obnoxious colors with smallmouth.
Yeah.
So it even changes there.
Let's get really, really specific. You're going fishing tomorrow. So we're in the middle of October, end of October, on the Willamette. You're trying to catch bass in these weather systems we've been having. What are you going to throw?
So I haven't looked real close at the Willamette the last few days. I've been busy, so I don't know what the watercolor is right now.
But within a few days, that'll change.
But I'm
your
saying
plan.
it could for sure.
Yeah.
It's pretty dark right now.
I'll say it's probably got a little color in it. We've had some rain in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this time of year in the fall, I do feel strongly that bass start to feed up on bait fish.
Okay.
There's a lot of all the fry that was spawned in the spring and summer is now they're transitioning into being 3-4 inch fingerling fish, some even bigger. They're real good snack size for bass. So I do feel like in this later part of the fall, mid to late part of the fall, there's a really good bait fish bite. So bait fish colors would probably be where I would start. But you just can't go wrong with crawdad colors and bass. At the end of the day, if there's crawdad in that body of water, somewhere there's a bass eating crawdad.
Yeah.
Even if there's a million bait fish around. So you can't go wrong with craw colors and bait fishing.
I've caught bass, plenty of bass where you squeeze the belly and you feel the crawdad there,
Sometimes they'll just puke them up on the actually a lot, especially out of the Columbia, man. I've caught a lot of them in the Columbia, and you boat flip them in, and next thing you know, there's just crawdad guts everywhere.
Really? Wow, I haven't had that. Yeah, that's cool.
The Columbia is loaded with crawdads, so they eat a lot of them there. But
well, that's all super helpful information. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Eric, do you have any more questions before we get toward the end of this?
No, I think he did a pretty good job of giving people some helpful hints to get them in some fish, whether they're out on the Willamette or they're out dinking around on a lake. You just really, it takes time, and that's the thing. You got to spend some time out there and figure out what works. It's always different. No, I think it's a good transition to kind of get into what we're really here to talk about, not only just the outdoors, but really what the spiritual connection is to the outdoors. I think for me, there's not a whole lot of things that can replace, a good day of being out fishing on the water, but it always kind of comes back down to why I'm there. And I don't know, for me, I always feel more at peace and like I'm in tune with God and only thinking about two things, fish and having some sort of a conversation. Maybe it's not with the guy I'm with, but the big guy upstairs. So what's your spiritual connection to the outdoors and your lifestyle?
The outdoors, that's where I clear my head. It's where I find a lot of peace and I can kind of step away from the chaos of everyday life. Like I said, I'm really busy, got a lot of different things going on in personal life and fishing and work, and getting out on the water is 100% a way that I can connect with the good Lord. And it's been something I've been doing my whole life, right? Whether it is hunting, sitting in a tree stand, or hiking upland game bird, country, or out on the water bass fishing. I definitely find myself saying a lot of little prayers when I'm out on the water in a good way, right? I'm thinking about how grateful I am and the gratitude that I have for where I'm at in life and the blessings that I have. And I often find myself just saying a little thank you for those things out there on the water. And there's actually a really good song out there by Larry Fleet. It's called That's Where I Find God. And he talks about being out on the water, in the woods, and that's where he finds God, right? Like that's where he has that spiritual connection. I relate to that a lot. It's a great song. And that's I've always had a strong faith. I'm not the guy that's out there necessarily, preaching to everybody around me. Probably should attend church a little more often than I do, to be honest with you. But that's where I feel the most close to him and have a lot of those really good conversations is out on the water, being outdoors.
Cool.
You mentioned gratitude, which I feel like is a huge, important concept. And anyone can feel gratitude and feel thankful for our wonderful resource, right? It's like this beautiful world that we get to live in. Whether you believe in God or a God or not, when you're out there, you just can't help but be enamored and so grateful for the outdoors. For the sunsets, for the mountains, for the trees, for the rivers,
all the critters, all the wildlife.
Animals.
I love the wildlife. That's just something about that really speaks to me. But yeah, you're right. You hit it on the head.
It makes me wonder what other things in life even can compare to the outdoors when it comes to the concept of gratitude. Relationships, people that you love, maybe. I just really, as an outdoorsman, it's like, other than family and people that I love and being thankful for those personal relationships, it's like the thing I'm secondarily most grateful for. And obviously for my salvation, for the saving grace of God. Those things aside, it's like there's nothing in this life I'm more grateful for than the beauty of the natural world. Hey, this is Bryant here with a quick interrupter. As I've been thinking about the conversation I had with Jamie this week, one thing that he talked about that really stood out to me was how when he's out in the outdoors, and when he's fishing, when he's hunting, he finds himself saying lots of prayers of thanks. Lots of little things, not only for the outdoors and for the resource, but for the blessings in his life, for his family, for the provision of God. And, even when I'm out there, I find myself praying a lot. Praying thanks. And a lot of times, even though I pray thanks for the things in my life like people, relationships, and provision, I also am praying thanks for the beautiful nature that I'm surrounded by and the animals that I get to pursue and all the amazing experiences I have when I'm out there. And I just wanted to say, maybe if you're listening to this and you're not a Christian, I have a question to ask if you relate to that, if you find yourself being grateful for nature and for the outdoors. Who or what are you being thankful to? Because gratitude is directed at something. We aren't just thankful for the trees because they exist. The trees don't have a choice to exist. They're just trees. They're trying to survive. They're trying to grow, and they are what they are, but they don't have a choice in the matter. So it would be kind of weird to be thankful for the trees or thankful for the mountains, thankful to the mountains, but once again, the mountains just kind of exist as a natural process. They're there. The mountains didn't choose to be there and choose to be beautiful and massive. For me, instead of being thankful to the created, the trees and the mountains and the outdoors and the views and the animals, I'm thankful to the creator of those things and for how he allows me to experience them and see his glory reflected in them. So maybe just some food for thought. If you're thankful for and you experience gratitude while you're out there doing these activities in the outdoors, maybe ask yourself, who are you thankful to? Who can you thank for this? And I think you'll find that the answer is God.
If people want to find you on social media, what are some of those ones that you're on most of the time?
Well, definitely Instagram. That's where I've kind of built called a following, right? Over the years, I've put a lot of energy into trying to build that, and that was very beneficial when it came to, providing a little bit of something for a brand, right? Is that I had a little bit of a following on there. So yeah, Jamie Mac Fishing on Instagram is probably where I'd send folks. Do have a Facebook page, Jamie Mac Fishing or Jamie McEldowney Fishing on there. I have a YouTube, but I haven't had any time the last couple of years to really mess with it. So I don't even know if that one really deserves a plug at this point.
I had to watch it last night, and I can just tell you right now, I watched you do a heel clicker, and I was going, dude, my hip flexors hurt so bad.
Right. You might have found the old Moto one. Did you find? I have a fishing one now too. The old Moto page on YouTube. That actually, that thing blew up for years. We put a lot of energy into that too. But I don't even know. I'm not even. Yeah. That one's long gone. I don't even think I could log into that one at this point if I wanted to. But on the fishing side, there's a Jamie Mac Fishing on YouTube. But
cool.
I think big one's Instagram for sure.
And, we also want to plug Discount Tackle because,
100%,
they're a huge part of your life.
They are. They're one of the biggest. Definitely want to let everybody know if you're in the Pacific Northwest, Jeff, and you need fishing tackle, check out discounttackle.com. We have some of the biggest sales in the industry. We have a ever-growing selection like we talked about. And the biggest selling point for us is our shipping turnaround time. And that goes across the country, realistically. We ship every single order that's placed day of, if it's placed before 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we get orders, thousands of orders out the door every single day that were placed that day. So we're really, really efficient in our shipping, and that we're gaining a lot of customers because of that. A lot of the other, big retailers online, it'll take a week or two to get tackle. Or you might get your package split up into 3 different shipments. We don't do that. You're going to get everything all at once. It's going to be fast. And if you're in the Northwest, you get it really fast.
Yeah.
We can, anybody in Oregon can pretty much order and have their package within 1 to 2 days on just standard shipping.
Yeah.
And free shipping over $59. So
cool.
Yeah, definitely grateful for that opportunity working at that at Discount Tackle, and plan to be there for quite a while and continue to see that thing growing. So
right on.
Yeah, check it out for sure.
Well, thank you for
awesome.
Yeah, thank you for coming out and making the time for us. This is, like I said, you've been on our list for a long time. Top 10, episode 10, Jamie Mack signing out.
I appreciate you guys for having me again. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for being on, and I'll be buying some tackle from Discount Tackle.
There we go. We got one at least. All right.
One sale.
Right
One sale.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man.
Definitely.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.